So thank you for tuning into today's show. And our guest today is Ashmi Pathela, who is an artist and author who left a thriving career in Silicon Valley to follow her heart. Now, during her travels, she experienced an awakening that showed her a new way of being, from forcing to allowing, from doubt to trust, discovering the magic of aligning her life with her soul essence. Her book, Awakening the Heart of Humanity, is a tribute to this unprecedented time of global awakening. And we are super excited for today's conversation. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Ashmi.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to just chat and see what comes through.
Ashmi, I am very excited for this conversation. I found you on Instagram and it was like somebody almost reading my mind. I was struggling to articulate some of the things that I was going through as well. And you write so beautifully. And I thought we need to have a conversation because there's so many people in our community as well that will resonate, I think, with your journey in terms of like how you got to what you're doing today. And also now how you're creating in the way that you do so beautifully. So Ashmi, could you give us a bit of a background as how did you get here? Like, because it wasn't always you writing this beautiful poetic work, at least publicly so, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, my life has flipped completely upside down in the span of, I would say, 5 years. I was a totally different person, working in Silicon Valley in California in the tech field. And, you know, my work was everything to me. I poured my heart into it. And at the time it was a dream career, but I was completely burnt out by the end of it. And there was just this time where I realized I'm losing my health. I don't even know what it feels like to be calm and just be in my heart anymore. Just adrenaline and heart palpitations, that was my normal. And I realized this isn't the path I want to keep walking. There's something else for me. And in that self-inquiry, I started asking myself the really big questions of, how do I want to feel? What do I want to experience in this life? Who am I? What does real happiness look like for me? Or what is success? And that's when I decided to leave my full-time job there. And I started traveling around the world, kind of working for myself. So I stayed kind of one foot in the door of Silicon Valley, consulting and freelancing other entrepreneurs. But through those little baby steps, I found the confidence and trust to take a leap of faith into a completely different, I guess you could call it, career, but it's more so my heart's kind of passion and joy and mission.
Beautiful.
Mate, Silicon Valley is like, it's like everyone knows that term. They hear it all over the place. It's like where people want to work there, they want to go there. They think it's like the epitome of kind of like you've made it type of thing when you work in Silicon Valley. But like I guess like the same as anywhere, it's those high pressure, high stress environments that people don't realize is the toll it can take on your health. So I'd love to know from your perspective, like you mentioned you were burnt out. What did that mean for you? What did that look like for you? Because I know when the term burnout is used so much, and I think a lot of people don't actually know what it is. They feel a bit tired one day, oh, I'm burnt out. What was burnout for you? What did it look like?
Yeah, it's kind of creeps up on you because it took many, many months where it gradually got worse and worse and worse. But for me, it feels like, let's say, my energetic fuse. If your cup is full, it's so full, you feel free, you have so much love and energy you can give to others. But for me, that fuse got shorter and shorter and shorter, and it felt like I was just getting tighter and tighter, wound up in this stress state. It's kind of like you're in fight or flight. Your body is just in that really tight place where you cannot relax. And I was waking up with heart palpitations, you know, unable to feel calm or happy, even on weekends. You know, it took me about 4 months of traveling after I quit my full-time job to find that harmony again, that balance. So yeah, it took a lot to kind of take that programming out of me, of the hustle mindset, or I need to keep going, I need to push myself to achieve, because as much as it was physical, it was also emotional and mental.
Did you ever consider staying in the workplace that you were in and trying to overcome the burnout? Or was it very clear to you when you started your self-inquiry, no, this isn't for me, I need to leave? Because there'll be people listening to this that feel that urge to just quit their job, go travel and find that thing, you know. But there'll be a lot of people as well thinking, well, I can't just do that, right? My life isn't set up that way. So I'm curious to know what that looked like for you.
For me, I pushed through it for about a year, where I was just fighting. And it's kind of strange because part of you wants it, part of you loves that thrill and even the safety net and the security. So part of you is choosing it. And you might be ignoring your body's signals or your whispers of the heart that are quieter. Another thing to note is it's interesting when you start having this intention of maybe there's more for me. I believe the universe will also bring things into your path or accelerate things or close doors on you where that pathway is no longer even optional. So for me, I actually was in a career where that startup was failing. It was just bursting at the seams. We were losing money. We had to get quickly acquired. Some members of the team continued on, but I had to fire 40 people and it was so emotional. And at that point, it was like, this is a sinking ship. Of course, I could get another amazing job in Silicon Valley. My career was really supporting me, but it was pretty clear for me, I don't want to continue on. And maybe it's not this permanent change. I could come back to Silicon Valley, but I owe it to myself to take even a few months or a year to try to see if there's another way. And that's when I started freelancing.
Yeah, beautiful. It's interesting what you said there is like going through the emotional turmoil of having to fire 40 people, because again, a lot of people think burnout can sometimes just be physical, right? And it's like we just get tired out and that fuse gets shorter, but we just don't have the energy to do anything else, right? But it's so emotional and psychologically it takes its toll. So did all of that emotional turmoil play a part in your burnout as well?
Of course. And sometimes I'd leave work during the day and because I had to get out and I was crying like on the street trying to get my composure together to come back, or I'd have to like hide in an office space where there's no one there and just feel my emotions. And it was really, it was really amazing because my colleagues, the ones I worked closely with, were like family and they really supported me. But at the same time, I felt like the weight of the world on my shoulders, even the emotions of the executive team. I was working closely with the CEO and feeling their emotions, their stress. It's a whole story where it could have turned into a movie. There was a lawsuit, the COO got fired. It was just insanity. So in terms of emotional weight, it was no longer just work. I was taking it home with me. I was waking up worrying about it. So it was all consuming. And at that point, all I had in my life was work, pretty much. Like everything I was dedicating my life towards was this one company. And then when I saw that it was failing and, all these years of effort towards the mission of the company, there was no point to it because there would be no more company after it gets kind of dissolved or acquired. I started realizing, no, I need to put my own heart and soul first. And I need to ask myself, what is it that I want to experience and be and create in this life? And only when my cup's full can I really give to others. What can I really make a difference in the world?
Absolutely. I think so many people can resonate with exactly what you just said there, is where you get to a point where you realize all you're doing, what you're thinking about, or everything is about work. And you get to a point where you realize that, okay, if this company did close down or I left, what would I have? And I think it's so important that for anyone to realize that whole hustle mindset of working 16, 17 hours a day and keep working until things get done, it becomes a very unhealthy habit we as obviously human beings kind of get sucked into. And when something does happen where we either lose that job or we leave that job, we start to lose that sense of who we are, and we don't know what to do next. So I would love to know how you went from that to then finding that, like, that connection with your heart and soul again. Like, how did you go from that intensity, that experience of hustle, 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 and burnout, to finding and tapping back into that heart and soul again?
It wasn't easy, and kind of you touched on it, where I had to pour my heart into work in Silicon Valley. And even though I complained about the burnout, part of me was terrified to create space to really face myself. And even, you know, since I didn't have as big of a friend network, because all I did was work, I worked some more to fill that void of loneliness, or I just enjoyed having that as an outlet. But when that disappears, you cannot distract yourself anymore from yourself. And when I first started traveling, of course, it felt really expansive and joyful to have these new experiences and a fresh start. But at the same time, I faced my own self-doubt, my own fears, everything I'd been kind of suppressing came up to the surface. And you almost have to sit through the fire of your deepest, darkest fears, the fear of being yourself, the fear of not being good enough. What do I have to offer the world? Like, who am I without this foundation anymore? And it was really difficult the first few months, especially, but even 2 years later, I was still battling with self-doubt, feeling in limbo, not fully confident enough to step into my dreams, and at the same time, not feeling excited about the path I had left. So I felt like I was just stuck between worlds.
It's so interesting that you said that, because Ashmi, I pulled some of your work from a post that you did, and I want to just read it so our listeners can hear, but it's very much about that limbo stage. And the reason I want to share this is because, again, it resonated with me very deeply, but also with the clients that we work with. Like, often they come to us and they're in that burnout state or very close to it, and they're experiencing stress in all of those different ways, physically, emotionally, mentally. But then as they go through their own transformation, then they're almost like walking a tightrope. And that can sometimes create a little bit more stress, but in a different way. And sometimes it can be initially quite scary and kind of create even more anxiety sometimes, is to like, oh, well, where am I then if I'm torn between these two worlds? So I just love to read this part. So he said, you may not realize you've been asking for expansion while simultaneously resisting it. In the limbo stage, you may yearn for momentum while also choosing the slowness out of fear of what expansion will bring. On some level, you may resist expansion because of fear of being seen, fear of being judged, fear of failure and/or success, fear of getting too busy and stressed, the fear of change, the idea that you are not good enough, the idea that you do not deserve it. And then it goes on to say, you will only expand at the pace that you can handle, the pace that you consciously and subconsciously choose to expand. Beautifully written, like it really is. It just sums it up, I think, beautifully. But I would love to get your thoughts on that. Why did that come about, and what does that really mean for anybody listening to this, and what do they do next?
Yeah, often we say we want something while also pushing it back and resisting. And for me, I wrote this at a time in my journey where I actually had already moved through a lot of my fears and doubts in the beginning stages. I'm starting to believe in myself and trust my path and my voice. I'm starting to share it more without filter. And at the same time, I realized I still was holding back, even though I want this expansion, because of the fear of being seen, being judged, everything that was on that list. But the moment there's this day where I suddenly thought, okay, expansion doesn't have to mean I'll get so busy and stressed and go back into that traumatic burnout again. It can mean more ease, more flow, more things that excite me, right? It can be positive. And when I shifted that mindset, literally something happened the next day that felt like, wow, everything's accelerating, right? My audience started growing, more people started messaging me with opportunities. And it reminded me that we do live in an energetic reality where our intentions, our beliefs, our expectations are so powerful. And when you shift them even by a slight degree, what you receive or what you notice in your outer reality can shift. So now I'm in a stage where I am allowing myself to feel safe, allowing my nervous system to feel safe with the idea of being seen as who I really am in both my quote unquote work, what I create, but also just in community, in friendships, in family, the freedom to just walk through the world and be me.
Beautiful.
That is amazing. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the one for me that stood out in particular was the fear of getting too busy and too stressed, because that was the very thing that I kind of walked away from in my own career as well, before kind of setting out on this journey with wellness theory. And it was absolutely the right choice. And like you, I'd kind of hung in there and tried to make it work and do the inner work whilst being in that environment. And it just wasn't aligning, and it was definitely time to go. But then the beauty, like you, it took a while to get out that programming. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock at night, and I'm like, why am I not working? Like, it just felt really weird. Like you said, like my nervous system was just like on tenterhooks, like just waiting for something. But then I found this beautiful space of safety, flow, ease, and I didn't want to let that go. So when it then comes to our business growing, it was like, no, I don't want to give this away at all. And that, I think, is, and then reading this around that time was very powerful, because it was a case of, okay, this is a limbo stage. This is a part of transition, and it's just evolution, isn't it? It's never ending, really. I think we'll probably find ourselves in the limbo stage again at some point, but perhaps in a different way. Do you agree? Like, tell us your thoughts on that, maybe.
I think there's not one limbo stage. It just shows us when we need to integrate and go within and clear some more within. And then when your energy naturally flows outward, these are just seasons. And what we're realizing is maybe the conventional world, the matrix, there are more black and white rules of what we think we should do or how we need to be to succeed or anything in life. But now what we're realizing is I can make the rules up for myself. I can choose what's aligned and say no to what's not. And it's okay. And for me, this expansion has led me into looking into what is a full yes in my heart and what's a not now, but maybe later, and really focus on what sings to me, because the old programming still there of fear of missing out, or I need to grab every opportunity. But the truth is, sometimes the heart wants to be a bit more selective with where you focus, and a bit more open to ease and magic and inspiration, which can only be created when you have space in your life, when you're not just going back to back.
Absolutely. And I guess I think it's important for anyone listening as well to understand that that's whole being busy and stressed is not a bad thing, as long as it's aligned with who you are, what you're doing in life, and you're creating that balance, because stress is a vital part of life to help us grow. It's like you say, when you get to that limbo stage, you're in that stage where, okay, I'm comfortable, I'm in flow, I'm in ease, but to go to the next level, I need to experience a bit of pressure, I need to experience a bit of stress to help me grow to that next level. But it's understanding that it's the stress you're experiencing, that's what we call it. It's that fine line between like stress and excitement. It's like you said, when you get excited about something, that's stress, that's healthy stress. You're excited, you want to do, you want to grow, you want to do something bigger. But when we kind of fall into that trap of, oh, I want to go bigger, but I'm scared to do this, or what if this happens? That's when we go into that unhealthy stress. That's when we go into the stress that holds us back. And it's important to understand and become aware of when that stress, that healthy and unhealthy stress starts to come up, and start to lean into the stress that's going to help us grow. And that's where that balance comes in, like you mentioned it earlier. And balance is not about, like you said, it's not about having that 50-50 balance between work and life. It's about balancing your energy. It's like, have you got the energy to show up in every area of your life and perform at your highest level? If not, you haven't got a balance. You haven't got that energetic balance. So you should be able to show up for work, for family, for loved ones, for yourself at your highest potential and you're like and perform at your highest level. And if in any area you're realizing that you haven't got the energy for example, your family or for your work, your balance is out of whack. And that's when that alignment comes back, and it's come back into asking that question is what I'm doing aligned with who I am? Is what I'm doing aligned with what I want? And if it's not, that's when you start, okay, I need to shift away from that and start to become more aligned with what I want. And I think that's where that kind of walking that tightrope of between unhealthy and healthy stress, and being okay of putting stress on yourself, or being busy but doing stuff that you know is aligned with your heart.
I love that.
Yeah, so I think because I think we demonize stuff like stress and busyness and too much, and it's understanding where it's coming from. Like you said, in Silicon Valley, if you're busy, being busy, working 17 hours a day, but it's not getting you where you want to be as an individual, that's going to lead to burnout. But if it's the other way around, it's great.
It's all about how you feel inside. So what's actually interesting is I noticed from the outside, when I was in the limbo stage of not really having as many projects and really going in and doing the inner work, I actually was more stressed. I was more emotional. I was more hard on myself, and in the negative way, I guess. But I was putting so much pressure on myself because in that stage, to the outer world, it looks like I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing any work, but I'm doing so much inner work and facing the areas where I criticize myself and I judge myself, facing my biggest demons and slaying them. And that was so tiring, actually, to be in that day-to-day battle in your mind. And then now to the outer world, it looks like I'm doing so much, and people must think I'm so busy, right? I am writing every day. I'm doing monthly ceremonies. I've written a book. I'm recording my audiobook. I'm getting the next book ready. So weird, because I'm doing more, even as an entrepreneur, I guess. I left Silicon Valley to leave that world, but now I guess from the outer world, I look like an entrepreneur with my own business. But how I feel about it, my relationship to it is completely different, to the point where sometimes I have to remind myself, oh, I'm working, or because I forget, and for me, it is, my life has aligned more with who I am and what I naturally do, what I naturally enjoy. Everything I write about is stuff I think about or journal about, or the words come through when I'm inspired, and it might take me maybe 10 minutes to write, but it feels like 30 seconds. And I'm in that state, not always, but I don't force myself to write when I'm not in that state. I only write when it comes through. So sometimes it's right after I wake up, or sometimes right after the shower. So I'm not even thinking about working. But the biggest thing I'm trying to illustrate is, I guess I'm working a lot now. I'm spending a lot of time on my computer, researching, working on things to scale, right? But somehow how I feel within has changed, where I feel more calm, more ease, more trusting, more allowing. I'm not forcing things to come in, and it feels more like a co-creation with my higher self and the universe. I guess my body is under some stress because I am doing, but at the same time, I'm filling my cup, and it's really replenishing me and bringing me so much joy.
I love that. It's that nourishment, isn't it? It's one thing to put yourself into those more expansive situations and put that stress on your body, but if you're nourishing yourself at the same time, it creates that synergy, which allows you to then embody that work-life synergy essentially as well.
Yeah.
So if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, well, that sounds amazing, I would like a taste of that life, right? But yet they are perhaps still in that limbo stage and resisting their expansion because of all of those things we mentioned earlier: fear of being seen, judged, failure, success, change, etc. How does somebody, in your eyes, or perhaps what did it look like for you? How did you slay your demons, as you put it earlier? Like, what was your process for that? Was you just taking time to yourself? Was you working with someone? Like, how did that play out for you?
Yeah, wow. I was in Bali at this time, And I had spent a few months traveling before then, but I really went into the inner work in Bali. And this, to me, it's different for everyone, I believe, but it looked like spending a lot of time in solitude. I was traveling solo, living alone, and meditating every day, really reflecting on life, journaling, trying to have this kind of childlike view again of the world. Because when you're traveling, you're more aware of the vibrancy of nature and opening up to the magic of the universe again. So it wasn't all shadow work, it was also light. And at the same time, I noticed some areas where I needed to heal. So synchronistically, I met someone who does inner child work, or I learned about emotional freedom, EFT, where you tap to reprogram your subconscious. So I worked on a lot of my limiting beliefs. I worked on my core fears, sending love to my inner child and revisiting those emotions that I had suppressed, and really shining a light on the things I thought I had already healed. All of this alchemized and sunk into my being, where I started shifting, and the pains that used to just be buried, they started feeling lighter, and the wounds started healing. And through breath work and other modalities, I really found myself again, my center. And part of it was also allowing myself to, again, do what I love or what I wanted to do just for fun, without it needing to be for a certain production or a cause, right? So I started painting again, started writing and sharing on a blog, and it terrified me. But every time I posted, my heart would just race, and I'd have this vulnerability hangover. You wouldn't even believe it, because now I share freely. But that itself, that exercise, helped me overcome my fears of just putting my writing out there. So one little baby step at a time, you really learn to love yourself through it and see yourself. And it gets easier, even though it might be really impossibly hard in the beginning.
I love that you said there's like just leaning into it, isn't it? Like, even though there was those moments of vulnerability and then the hangover that comes with that, the fact that you did it, your comfort zone just expands more and more. So leaning in is incredibly powerful, and it's something that I found is whenever I notice there's some resistance or a little bit of doubt comes up, that's my cue to do it. Whereas in the past, that was my cue to retreat. And that alone has been really, really powerful, probably more than I ever gave it credit for. Because I was always a person that, okay, just go for it and do it anyway, but it was more coming from a force rather than from a powerful place. And I think when you're leaning into something because you know you're on the verge of something, that's where I think the magic happens.
Yeah. And kind of like what Jonathan said, anxiety and excitement, or that stress and excitement, they're two sides of that same coin. So even now I'm playing with, okay, I'm getting a little nervous about this event I'm speaking at, or this gathering I'm going to. And instead of leaning into and feeding that nervousness, can I shift into meditating and feeling the excitement? Like, oh, it could be fun. It could feel easeful. It could go well, right? And feeding that excitement, or allowing yourself to visualize, what if it does go well? You start channeling that energy into something that really holds you, and maybe what you actually experience will change to fit that vision.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's just exactly what you said there. Is like, I think so many people overthink when they get to that stage of that nervousness and that stress. And I think we just need to kind of bring it back down to, it's all energy at the end of the day, and you can shift your energy in a click of a finger. Like you said, by reframing your thoughts is going to create that energetic lift. And like you said, how you perceive things. So instead of thinking, oh, I'm not going to forget my words, I'm gonna bomb, people are going to laugh at me. Because actually, what's it going to look like when it goes well? I'm going to go out there, I'm going to speak, I'm going to flow, people are going to love it, it's going to feel great. You're going to start to shift that energy. You start to shift, and you feel lighter automatically just by creating that image and that visualization in your head. And your emotions start to rise up, your vibration starts to rise, and you feel lighter, you feel more excited. So it's kind of playing that little seesaw game between stress and excitement, and you're having to constantly remind yourself that obviously, like it's about your thoughts, it's about your perceptions. Change your perception, like lean into that vision of everything going well, lean into that vision of you going out there and smashing it and being excited, and the nerves are going to help you do that, but it's just making sure that you're teetering towards the excitement more than the anxiety and the stress.
I think that the missing link sometimes with that of changing your perceptions is absolutely necessary, but I think there's something really crucial that you said, Ashmi, that really highlights the need for us to put our body into that state as well, because you said to pause, to stop, and to meditate, because yes, there's some truth to that. When we feel nervous and excited, it's the same chemical drop, but actually depending on how embodied you feel, how present and how still we are, will determine which part of the brain it activates. Then we can create those perceptions. So that embodiment part, that piece that I just really want our listeners to hear, that yes, it's absolutely seeing the alternate, but creating that space, like you mentioned earlier, to be able to sit with that, be in it, is equally as powerful, I think.
Yeah, and the missing ingredient is trust. So this presence that comes, this calm that comes from a foundational trust in yourself and in life, and also this feeling of, okay, even if I bomb it, it's okay. I love myself and it'll be all right. Or even if something goes that wrong or something happens that's not expected, maybe it is for my highest expansion, maybe it's leading to something better. So really nurturing that trust in life brings you into the now moment, because excitement, even if it's amazing, it's an amazing frequency, it's still pulling you into the future. It's still needing you to reach a certain outcome, when another frequency that I would feel is even more expansive or higher is contentment and joy in the now. And if you can walk in this frequency moment by moment, then of course you'll anchor more joy in the next moment and the next, but you won't need it. You won't need anything outside of you. You'll already feel that within. And I'm not saying I'm there, but I'm working on it. And yeah, it's really a nice place to experiment, because I am someone who's chronically just positive, excited about the future, always thinking about the next dream, when I'm learning, no, look, this life I've created is, something I've always wanted even 10 years ago. It's beyond what I would have even imagined. So really breathe in and soak in the goodness you have now. Yeah.
It's just like leaning into that level of acceptance and surrender into the present, and whatever happens. And it's a learning experience, like whether it's based on how you perceive it, good or bad, but you can always learn something from it, take something from it, and grow from it as well. So I think that's definitely a powerful one, not seeing it as a bad thing if something goes wrong, but seeing it as, okay, that's an interesting thing. That's interesting what happened. What can I learn from this? What can I take and grow from this?
Ashmi, you said there, obviously, trust being that missing ingredient. And I believe to truly surrender, we have to put our trust somewhere. I don't know if that's actually surrender, because you're actually attaching something else to it, right? But I feel able to surrender when I feel there's something I can trust. So how does somebody start to cultivate trust within themselves, within the universe, with their God, like whatever that means to someone? How do we do that? And you mentioned like self-love before, so I don't know if there's a connection in your mind with those things.
Yeah, it's a really deep topic, because I feel like from childhood or maybe lifetimes ago, we have been programmed to think we're not good enough, to not trust ourselves or life, to feel like we're a victim to things happening to us and nothing's in our control. And living in that state of lack or scarcity or fear, it kind of contracts your body, and it makes you put a wall around your heart even to protect you, and from getting hurt again, or getting disappointed, or from being hurt by others. So it is a day-to-day practice. I feel like self-love and inner child work is a huge piece for everyone to explore if it calls you. But for me, it was also, I guess, the shadow work helped me come into my heart, but the light work helped me come back to my heart even more. So this is noticing the magic in the universe, right? Really changing my thoughts to, okay, universe, show me the magic. I'm open to being guided. I am being more aware of the synchronicities and finding more gratitude. And when I started living like this, one thing after another came into my life where it was not a coincidence. It felt really like a creation with spirit, with my own spirit, whatever you want to call it. But it gave me this trust that there's something really powerful going on. You can call it the universe or my own power to create. As I shift my own intentions and thoughts and beliefs and expectations, the reality shifts in response to me. And playing with this energy, here's a fun thing you can do. It's really silly, but it gave me a lot of hope and excitement early on. I was like, okay, I know about synchronicity and manifesting. I've read books about it. What if it is true? Like, if it is 100% true for me, it would be so fun to know without a doubt, right? So I was in Thailand and I set an intention. Show me white rabbits, right? Nothing big, like not a big manifestation that might be harder because you have more fears around. I was like, okay, I'm gonna see lots of white rabbits. And what the biggest key is to let go of attachment to the outcome or any fears of it not happening. So I just forgot about it, went about my day. And amazingly, I see like a sticker of a white rabbit on a pole. And then I see like salt shakers and dolls and pictures and videos. And it was like literally 100 white rabbits within 2 days, where I was like, please stop, no more. It's creeping me out. I was on a plane and this girl had like a pencil case of a white rabbit. It's like, okay, this is too much. Like, let's stop. But it was also very exciting for me because it made me realize how fluid this reality is. And you might call it confirmation bias, but to me, the feeling I got when I saw it was like, oh, that's exciting. And what else can I ask for? What else can I create?
I love that. When you first said that, I thought, yeah, there's not many white rabbits in Thailand. But then even when you started to say it, I was like, they could be. And we're just not seeing them, right? We're not calling it in. But I have a similar thing with butterflies. And I was actually this year, I was doing some deep shadow work, some inner child work still there as well. And I don't know what it was, but I just felt this connection. I felt like these butterflies were here to tell me something. And every time I was having this thought or this idea, I would see these butterflies, like whether it be an actual butterfly or whether like on our beach here, we've got like little shells that look like a butterfly, a very specific one, and just see them. And now when we walk on the beach, I'm like, right, what was we thinking? There's a butterfly there. Like, what's going on? Like, and it really does, it makes me pay more attention to the thing that was going on at the time, whether it was a feeling, whether it was a conversation, and you can take that to extremes. So the feeling has to be present with it. But I was out in the ocean in my kayak, and all of a sudden there was like 3 butterflies just around me.
In the ocean.
Exactly.
Wow.
Like, and I'm like far out, and I'd never seen butterflies out that far before. And I'm like, yeah, there's something to this. And it was just, and it just reaffirmed my trust that I felt even more supported, not just by myself and the work I was doing, but I felt supported, like things are unfolding as they should be. And I think for me, whilst in that limbo stage as well, that was extremely powerful for me to then pay more attention, I think, to those things that were coming up. And it's interesting that you said about playing with that, right? Because play was one of the key things that come out for me from my inner child work. Play and compassion. There was a lot that come out of that kind of work, as I'm sure you're aware. But for me, compassion and playfulness took the edge off of the intensity of what I was experiencing and the work that I was doing, the stress that I was experiencing, and it energized me. And I think sometimes we can take topics like stress, anxiety, or depression, or just finding our purpose, and it can get real heavy real fast. So I think to bring that light I love that you talk about the light work as well as the shadow work can really come together and help us to integrate.
Yeah, because on this path, we get really caught up in the healing journey and the heaviness. And of course, there's a lot of purging going on, a lot of emotions. But what really helped me was I kept dancing between both worlds of light and shadow. And I allowed myself to receive the magic and look for the magic. And almost like maybe these synchronicities are a permission slip to allow yourself to expand your view of what's possible or to believe in the positive side. But a lot of people, they'll see the synchronicity, but they won't allow themselves to get excited about it, or they'll just say, oh, that's all right, it's just that. But I really allowed myself to feel giddy like a child and be like, oh my God, show me more. And that really helped me stay in my heart whilst doing the other shadow work too.
So if anyone is listening to this and they're going, they're asking, okay, what can I do now to help me connect with my heart, or to help me get back to that trust in myself? Like, what's in your experience, what you've gone through, what one piece of practical advice would you kind of recommend, or would you say to someone to start doing straight away, that they can start doing literally like off the back of this episode, that will help them connect with their heart?
If you're in this stressed out state, sometimes just sitting and trying to meditate won't really help because you're still in the mind. So I would say get out of the mind and get into the body. And one way you can do this is through breath work. There's a lot of different breath work circles around the world, and it really gets you out of the thinking brain and into your body. Or another one would be movement. So walking in nature, or, yoga, or something that allows you to just drop out of the head, the thinking mind. I highly recommend, what I love is grounding. So like walking barefoot in nature. And another thing is, I spent a lot of time just listening to my body. So ask your body what it needs. And while I was in Bali, it's like, okay, more water. So drinking more water, or I'd lay in a pool and just look at the clouds and be, and taking this pressure off yourself to always be doing something productive, even if you can only afford it for an hour, on a weekend, or maybe 10 minutes before bed, or 3 hours on a weekend. Give yourself space to just go back into this, I don't need to do anything productive, I just need to nourish myself. And when you're in that state, connected to nature, then you might get some inspiration, you might just start feeling better, without putting pressure on that to come. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, that non-striving attitude is exactly the advice I needed probably about 4 years ago, and I still need it at times today for sure. But it really makes a difference, because when we start to practice it, for me, I started to realize your time off is actually probably more important than the time you spend in go mode.
Yeah, you can make quantum leaps thanks to that time off. Whereas like an idea might come after 2 weeks of slowing down, or whatever it is for you, 10 hours of slowing down, that would have normally taken maybe 40 years to come, or never. So one example with this is, when I said goodbye to my last client in Silicon Valley that I was working remotely for, it was finally taking away that safety net of, okay, one more month. And instead of jumping to the next creation or project, it really scared me. But I was like, okay, no income right now, but I'm going to just let myself be and nourish myself and journal and just kind of work on that programming, those layers, to get back to my heart, get back to what I really want. And it was quite scary. There was no safety net, but somehow within that time, maybe a month or two later, the idea for my book came through. And it was only because I was much more relaxed and in a playful, open state, not even trying to think of, I'm going to write a book. It was this, in meditation, I got this joy of, oh my God, I want my future children to hold this book. And it's going to be my soul's essence, my message to humanity. And I felt so much joy. And that was the energy of the book just channeling through me. And I don't think I would have ever received it if I didn't get in that state of openness.
I love that so much. I was about to ask you, like, tell us more about your book, Awakening the Heart of Humanity, but I think you've literally just hit the nail on the head there when you said, like, it's your message to the world. But what can somebody expect from reading your book?
It's not like a regular book. It has my words and art, and it is kind of like a capsule of these times, this amazing awakening journey back to the heart. And yeah, I wanted to bow down and give a tribute to humanity for how far we have come and what we can get excited for, what's coming in next, and get you in that energy of remembering your own power and magic. So for me, it's so special because it is my entire journey kind of encapsulated in a creation, and that you can hold and feel, and it is my transmission to the world. So yeah, thank you for asking about it. I'm really, I don't know, honored to be the vessel for it.
You really are. You really are. So where can our listeners get their hands on your book should they want to read it?
Yeah, it's on my website, ashmipathela.com. And you can also find it through my Instagram at Ashmi Path. I sold out the first edition, so I'm working on the second edition, which will be out in early 2023. And I'm doing the audiobook recording literally next week.
Fantastic.
Awesome. We'll put obviously all those links in the show notes. So anyone listening, go over there and obviously start to keep track and wait for that second edition to come out.
So Ashmi, is there anything else you feel like our listeners need to hear, or are there anything else you feel like you want to share and feel inspired to?
So much. I think the biggest thing is it is so normal and human to question your journey, your progress, who you are, but know that you are on this path for a reason. And even those doubts that come up are there to support you in your expansion, right? And even the deepest challenges you've faced are there for your strength. So just keep walking every step at a time and trust that it is leading to something so beautiful and more magical than your wildest dreams. I really feel this for everyone. We're entering a new time and new energy on Earth where our hearts' callings will be so much more supported and so much more embraced than ever before. And right now we're going through kind of a pressure cooker time on Earth where a lot of our fears are getting triggered. A lot of our darkness in the world and the systems out there are showing up, but it's all happening to help us see what we couldn't see before and shift and really declare what it is we want to experience in our life and in the world. So yeah, keep trusting your life, your path, yourself, because you are here for a reason.
Amazing. Thank you.
Ashmi. John's like, thank you.
Just
falling in love.
Exactly. Just such a great, just want to just thank you. It's just such a beautiful conversation today. We've had an absolute blast speaking to you, but listening to you as well. So I can guarantee anyone who's listening to this is just going to love it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all of the work you do. We absolutely love you. We adore the work you're doing, and I'm very excited to see what's to come and what else is going to be coming up as you continue to flow.
Thank you so much, Jonathan and Charlotte. Really appreciate you both, and I just feel so much love for you guys and everything you're doing. Yeah, thank you for listening to my story and giving me a chance to share. Really appreciate it.
Always. So thank you everybody for listening. All of the links to find Ashmi will be in the show notes, and we look forward to seeing you soon.